Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics.
Welcome back, one and all. I'm Adam the Fanatic, and today we're taking a look at Far Away From Home, a tactical RPG by Matthew Wong. Please keep in mind that I did play this game pre-release. As of the time of writing, the developer is still going through the game, squashing bugs and fine-tuning things before release. While the game is currently feature complete, there may be some minor changes between what you see here and the finished product. At its core, Far Away From Home is a tactical RPG in the vein of Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together, or Final Fantasy Tactics. You'll have a party of 5 characters that will have to fight their way through a series of battles on grid-based maps. You'll have to carefully position your units, paying attention to both the position and elevation of friends and foes alike. For most maps, the goal is simply to defeat all enemies, but you'll also have a number of levels that will change things up, including a map where you're trying to escape an avalanche as you fight, a 3-way battle where enemies will fight each other as well as your own party, a couple maps with no enemies where you simply try to gather as many resources as possible in a limited time, and of course, a number of boss fights. Each of the 5 main characters in Far Away From Home is unique and has their own class. Firstly, you have Simon the Doctor, and as you probably already guessed, Simon can heal allies as well as apply buffs to them. You also have the option of investing in abilities that will allow him to apply debuffs to enemies. He probably won't be dealing much damage to them, but he can certainly make them easier for other characters to deal with. Next, you have Claster, Simon's loyal dog. Claster can act as a tank or support, and other characters can pet him to recover a bit of focus. On top of that, Claster also has 2 partner-up abilities where he'll share a space with one of your other characters and move alongside them. Pavis will allow him to take damage in place of the character that he fights alongside, while Riposte will allow him to counterattack anyone that strikes his charge, even from a distance. Next up, we have Crim the Brawler. She can be built as a melee fighter or a tank, and is capable of powerful attacks that can cripple foes, stunning them to force them to lose a turn, lowering their defenses, or weakening their attacks. She can also pick up and throw another character, be they friend or foe. After she tosses someone, enemies nearby will take damage. Fourthly, we have Graf the Sharpshooter. Now when you hear Sharpshooter, you might imagine he uses a rifle to pick off foes, or maybe something more archaic like a bow or even a sling. But no, in fact, he actually flicks coins at them. Really, really hard. This is probably a reference to the Guild Toss ability from the Final Fantasy series. Regardless, he's your primary ranged attacker. It's really all he does, but he's pretty good at it. And finally, you have Gabriel the Samurai. Gabriel is primarily a melee attacker, although she does have a really good ranged ability that allows her to strike all foes in a straight line, regardless of distance. This skill is absolutely amazing on larger maps. Beyond that, she also has the Blink Step ability, which allows her to teleport a short distance and doesn't use up her action for the turn. You'll also be able to convince NPCs to join you. You can only bring one into battle, and since they don't speak English, you can't give them commands, but they'll help you out all the same. In order to do so, you'll need to weaken a foe and then bribe them to your side, though obviously this doesn't work with bosses. As you go through the game, your characters will of course gain experience and level up. Each level will give you 3 stat points and a single skill point, and every 10th level will give you a single trait point. All characters have strength, dexterity, agility, and focus stats, while Claster and Crim also have an additional endurance stat. Claster and Crim use their HP to take damage as you would expect, while the others instead take damage to their focus, which is what characters use to activate their special attacks. If a focus-based character runs out of focus, then the next attack will render them unconscious regardless of its strength. Skills have 4 levels, each increasing in cost, so you'll need 1 point for the first level, 2 for the second, etc. In addition to each level simply being more powerful than the last, the 4th level of skill also gives a very powerful bonus for mastering it. For example, Gabriel's aforementioned Sonic Boom will radiate out in all 4 directions once she's maxed it out. Likewise, master Claster's Pavis ability and he'll be immune to critical hits while partnered up. As for traits, these are especially powerful abilities. Some are passive, while others will enhance a specific skill. There's only 1 point in each. I managed to get to level 39 by the time I started the final stage, so it may well be possible to get enough XP to hit level 40 and get all 4 traits for each character. On one final note about XP, one thing I really liked about it was that characters don't have their own experience points. Your party has a single shared level, and characters all level up together as a result, so you never have to worry about underusing or overusing a single character, and instead can focus on how you want to use them in battle. Along the way, you'll also collect equipment known as ring drives. These come in 4 levels of quality and can be broken down for components to make new ones. Obviously, the higher the quality, the more crafting components you'll need. Some are simple stat buffs, while others will be more esoteric changes, such as increasing focus costs to make buffs an area of effect. Additionally, Classer can learn a swipe ability, which will steal supplies from enemies or even ring drives when you get it maxed out. You'll also have a handful of unique ring drives that you'll obtain late game, which can't be crafted. Be careful though, as you can still dismantle them if you so choose. There's also single-use healing items in the game, though I never actually ended up using these. You have access to them at any time, but using any of them will drain from your supplies as though you're purchasing them mid-battle. Between battles, you'll also be able to assign each party member to a task, allowing them to spar, scavenge for supplies, buff the party's stats, or reset that character's upgrade points. Difficulty-wise, the game is challenging but fair. I played on the default difficulty, and if you want a greater challenge or an easier game, there are sliders that allow you to fine-tune just how powerful your enemies are. These will pop up when you first start the game, but can also be changed between stages at will. I did have to replay a handful of stages before winning, although it never felt overwhelmingly difficult. The final stage did require me to change up my strategy a fair bit from what I'd been doing up to that point, but that's what a proper tactical game does. It forces you to reassess your plans. There's no replaying levels to grind, so while you can respec fairly easily, you'll still want to assess your battle plans and be smart about how you distribute your supplies and upgrades. Presentation-wise, the game is fairly solid. Personally, I'm not entirely fond of the mixed art style. The retro-style character graphics and the higher detail environments look good on their own, but the mixing of the two just feels off to me. It's not a huge hang-up, but I do wish that it was one or the other. Nevertheless, the artwork isn't bad. There's also a fair bit of character development, as each of the party members has a very distinct personality, and they all play off each other pretty well with a fair bit of humor. And finally, that brings us to the story. Our tale begins as a test of the Large Hadron Collider goes awry. Wait, are we still making jokes about that? And our heroes find themselves suddenly teleported to an unfamiliar land.
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
They soon cross paths with one another, and Krim reveals that she's discovered the ring drives as well as a futuristic gun-like weapon on an ancient corpse. They divvy up the ring drives while Simon takes the gun. Before long, the group is beset by bipedal wolf-like creatures and are forced to fight them off. It's far from the last fight they have against these alien beasts, but they soon come to a couple realizations. Firstly, their grunts and growls are more than just animalistic noises. They seem fully intelligent and capable of communicating with one another. And secondly, they're also capable of making and using weapons, not only blades, but also musket-like firearms. Most of the early game is dedicated to character development. Each of the characters has their own personality and quirks to them, and they get to know more about each other as the game moves along. Gabriel is a no-nonsense type, but has a deep sense of loyalty. Simon sort of becomes the de facto leader of the group, and tries to ensure that they're merciful even in victory, even patching up foes that survive their battles. Graf is a foul-mouthed blowhard, but he does his best to work along with the others. And Krim is just crazy. How crazy? I mean, she actually tries to grunt and growl in an attempt to communicate with the wolf-like creatures. For the first third of the game or so, all you're really doing is getting to know the characters and fighting off your lupine foes. But eventually, more details about their situation do come to light.
And now that we have the bare bones of the plot out of the way, it's time to discuss some of the story's twists and turns. If you wish to avoid spoilers, please jump ahead to the time coordinates indicated on screen. Initiate temporal distortion now. Still with me? Then don't say I didn't warn you.
As the party journeys through forests and mountains, they eventually come to realize that not all the lupine creatures are hostile. They intervene as a peaceful pair are attacked by more aggressive wolves, making a sort of friendship with them, with Krim nicknaming them Het and Al. With the groups unable to understand one another, they soon part ways, but it's not long before they meet again. Now the pair is fighting atop what looks like an altar of some sort, under attack by an especially powerful wolf which Krim ends up naming after the mythological Fenrir. Al is badly wounded but alive. Het attempts to deliver the finishing blow to Fenrir, but Krim and Simon convince the others that it's best to leave him alive, lest the remainder of his pack hunt them down in vengeance. After that, they come to a massive desert, where they stumble across the remains of a city. Once there, the gun begins to synthesize speech, in English no less.
Since we're not operating by Star Trek logic where everyone magically speaks English despite having zero contact with Earth, this leads them to the conclusion that they must still be on Earth, albeit far in the future.
You maniacs! You blew it up!
After delving into various ruins, they come across what seems to be a bunker, learning that the gun Simon has is key to activating some sort of weapon known as the SSS system, although they're unable to figure out exactly what that is for the time being. They do, however, find a recording that speaks of a massive sacrifice of an ancient army that presumably developed the weapon, but there seems to be no signs of survivors anywhere, only the recordings they left behind. But at the very least, said recordings are able to lead them to a city. They find what looks like something out of a zombie apocalypse, a sprawling urban landscape inhabited by no one. No one that is except a robot known as the Ambassador. He seems helpful at first. They learn from the Ambassador that they're not the first ones flung into the future by the Hadron Collider, and furthermore, there are other humans alive elsewhere. But the Ambassador is very insistent on taking them to meet the others immediately. Violently insistent. It takes all their might to fight against the Ambassador, and just when it looks like they've defeated him, he simply repairs himself. The party soon finds themselves caught between a rock and a hard place as Fenrir and his pack show up. But deciding to make lemonade out of the lemons they've just been handed, Krim tosses the Ambassador at Fenrir, setting them to fight against one another and allowing the party to escape into the city. Once inside, they head to a library. Luckily, the computers still seem to work and they're able to gather a bit of information. Firstly, the SSS system, or Sky Saber satellite, is an orbital ion cannon capable of unleashing a blast that can level approximately a 1-mile radius.
Ion cannon activated. Stealth unit detected. Reinforcements ready.
Unfortunately, Simon's gun must be used to designate a target, and on top of that, it has a 5-minute charge-up time. They also learn more about the robot that they met earlier. The Ambassador was one of a trio of sentient robots alongside the Conductor and the Curator. As you've probably guessed, they rebelled against humanity. The Conductor was destroyed through the efforts of a resistance force, but that still leaves 2 of the constructs to contend with. Unfortunately, the Ambassador arrives and locks them out of the library systems before they can learn more, and begins to chase the group through the city. They manage to lose him once or twice, but with his self-repairing systems, all they can really do is continue to run.
It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity, or remorse, or fear, and it absolutely will not stop. Ever!
They eventually run into Fenrir again, whom, after helping them evade the Ambassador for a little while longer, gives them a tablet left behind with more information. From it, 2 more things become clear. Firstly, the constructs are gathering humans in a facility. What they do with them is unclear, but it seems to be a fate worse than death. Secondly, the Resistance fighters were looking for an object known as a diamond cortex, which the constructs also desired. But of course, they can't stay ahead of the Ambassador forever. They push into what seems to be some sort of massive governmental building, and eventually come across a new construct known as the Abhorrent. Although it looks like some sort of zombie demon thing, the game is very clear that this is indeed another robot, although for what point and purpose it exists is unknown. After managing to escape it, the group eventually does come face to face with the Curator, surrounded by the aforementioned diamond cortexes. He claims his directive is to ensure the survival of humanity until the end of time, although his exact interpretation of this command is never explicitly stated. Although he seems willing to talk, the Ambassador is quickly catching up, and not wanting to be caught between the two, the party decides to fight the Curator while he's still alone. They manage to force him into repair mode like they did with the Ambassador, then quickly run off with a diamond cortex. They make their way back through the city, but eventually find themselves cornered. The Ambassador, the Abhorrent, and the Curator have all caught up to them, demanding that they surrender the diamond cortex, and themselves. Luckily, Fenrir and Garm, another former foe, both show up in the nick of time. Through a fierce battle, the group manages to temporarily disable the trio of constructs. With all of them forced into repair mode, Krim gives a command to Fenrir and Garm. She takes the activator from Simon as the wolves carry the others away, while she stays behind and fires the Sky Saber at her location. As the weapon is priming, she explains everything to the Curator. The first ring drive that Krim took placed her into a Groundhog Day style loop. So long as she wore it, whenever she died, she'd find herself back at the moment when she first put the ring on. This allowed her to constantly learn more about her foes,
finally leading up to the slim chance of victory. This is actually hinted at throughout the game. She has a number of lucky guesses that she just brushes off as instincts.
Let me guess. Your instincts told you.
Hey, sometimes they're right.
Sokka? You know we're going the wrong way, right?
And sometimes they're wrong.
Additionally, she is genuinely able to understand and speak the wolf's language, and at one point even jokes with Raph about being from the future. But now that she's finally got the constructs trapped and the Sky Saber ready to fire, she's removed the ring drive so she'll stop looping and fires the weapon with her right at ground zero along with the constructs. After that, the game has a brief epilogue in the form of a letter from Krim to the others. She explains to them what's happened, gives them some advice from the future, but also informs them that there doesn't seem to be any way back to the past.
Admittedly, it's a bit abrupt. I'd have very much liked to have seen how the others would have reacted to Krim's letter. Furthermore, the game never really explains how the constructs saw themselves as preserving humanity, and beyond that, we never find out what the Diamond Cortexes actually did. Although I do speculate that the two might not be unrelated. We never did get to see this facility where they took their prisoners. And beyond that, it's clear that even one Diamond Cortex is of great importance to the constructs. This leads me to believe that the Diamond Cortexes may be the crystallized remains of the people that they captured, somehow compressed into and stored as data within them. But the game never really goes into detail to explain this, so I could be well off base here. Welcome back, Chrononauts. You're just in time to join us for the conclusion.
All in all, Far Away From Home is a great tactical RPG. It has enough familiar that fans of the genre can jump right into it, but it also does enough things unique that it doesn't feel like a clone of other popular titles. Characters have multiple viable ways you can build them, and levels are varied enough that the game never gets stale. It is a little on the shorter side of RPGs, as it only took me about 12 hours from start to finish, but it was a blast to play through. The graphics look nice, and while the story does feel like it ends a little suddenly, the interaction between characters is excellent. For a first showing from the developer, it's a very impressive title, and I eagerly look forward to seeing where they go from here. Both longtime fans of TRPGs and newcomers looking to get into the genre are sure to find something worthwhile here. In conclusion, I find Far Away From Home to be worthy of a respectable 9.2 out of 10.
Far Away From Home is being released for PC via Steam. As of the time of writing, they're aiming for a release date of August. This video is planned to go live on the 12th, so the game may or may not be available when it goes live. Even if the game isn't available when you're watching this, there is a demo which will let you go through the first few stages of the game. If you're interested in purchasing, trying out the demo, or learning more, links are included in the description. What about you? What do you think of Far Away From Home? What TRPGs do you enjoy? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. And if you really enjoy my work, please consider funding my channel on Patreon. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.